All right.
All right, welcome everybody to this session. This is going to be on digital badging and micro-credentials. I will go ahead and our presenters, we have Beth Nettles and Amanda Major. I'll go ahead and turn it over to you guys.
All right. So I'll get started and kick the presentation off. So we're talking about micro-credentials and digital badges. And the reason it's become is because digital badges have become really popular recently, especially now that badging platforms can be integrated into learning management systems. And they are now ways to validate accomplishments, and higher education is seeing them as becoming the preferred way of recognizing micro units and other fascinating things to do with badges. So my name, as Joe said, is Beth Nettles. I'm the Director of Learning Content Production at the Center for Distributed Learning here at UCF. And one of our newest initiatives is badging and micro-credentialing. And I'll let Amanda introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Amanda Major, Assistant Program Director of the Pegasus Innovation Lab and Beth's partner in crime in micro-credentialing in our digital badge effort. So welcome everyone, glad you could make it.
All right.
Oh, so I wanted to find out, there's lots of different terminologies related to micro-credentialing. You may have heard it, alternative credentialing, creds, micro units, you name it. So I wanted to know what your preference was. What do we call this? Please navigate over to Slido and complete the poll. And I can also put the poll in the chat for you for ease of your access. So do that now, please. Give you a second if you wanted to scan it. And then hopefully you can see my Slido there. And I'll give you a second before I show the results. All right, let's see. Okay, so micro-credentialing, all one word is your preference. Oh, well, it's neck to neck now.
I too prefer it to be all one word, but spell checker doesn't like it. So I often end up hyphenating it just because.
Well, thank you for taking a moment to complete that poll. All right.
Well, we see it spelled all sorts of different ways. And alternate credential is the newest form of recognizing this micro-credentials. So I'm going to start off with what is a micro-credential, and many of you have probably already heard these definitions, so I apologize for the redundancy, but I feel like we need to share. Micro-credential is a short competency-based certification that allows an individual to demonstrate mastery of a particular skill or topic. And unlike traditional degrees or certificates, micro-credentials are smaller in scope, are more flexible, and often faster to complete. There are all kinds of definitions. There is no common definition in our nation. Other nations have been struggling with creating a common definition for a micro-credential. But some of the key characteristics of micro-credentials are that they are targeted skills. They are focused on developing specific in-demand skills rather than a broad curriculum. They're competency-based. They're awarded based on demonstrated mastery of a subject matter, not just seat time. They're personalized, so individuals can choose which micro-credentials they want to work towards for whatever their goals are, their career goals or their interest. Micro-credentials are flexible and allow learners to study at their own pace. They're of shorter duration, so they're typically earned in weeks or months as opposed to years or years for a degree or certificate. And they're cost effective, so micro-credentials are generally less expensive than traditional degrees or certificates. Okay, so what is a badge? A badge is not a micro-credential. We want to be clear about that. A badge is a visual representation of a micro-credential, or it could be a representation of some other achievement. Badges are easily shareable, they're verifiable, and they contain metadata. So what is metadata? Well, metadata is the structured information that is captured in the digital credential that describes what's going on. It describes the achievement, it describes the criteria for earning the badge, it describes outcome, it describes who it is that's issuing the badge and who is receiving the badge. That graphic is from Credly, and it shows you all the different parts of the badge so that you can see there's a lot of metadata that goes into a badge. All right. One of the other things that I think is interesting, I'm sorry, Amanda, one of the other things that is interesting about a badge is the fact that the earners can accept the badge and share the badge. All right, I'm sorry.
No worries at all. So you might be asking, why badge? Well, here's some reasons. Badges inform students and employers about the value of learning. It empowers learners to recognize that they're achieving. By earning badges, learners enhance their credibility. They're easy to share, so they can showcase their skills and accomplishments across platforms. And the badge system carves out a path of like incremental step-by-step experiences, guiding the learner towards increasingly challenging skills. Some of us know that as scaffolding or skill progression. Badges can gamify the learning experience, and this adds an element of competitive fun to the challenge, which can be motivational to many. And badges deliver immediate value. They don't have to wait until years pass or the semester passes. They could earn a badge within a short time period, so it's immediate. Badging, when combined with meaningful learning experiences, ultimately benefits the learner. I think this illustration demonstrates that. It may start with a conversation between an instructional designer and a faculty member. And this collaboration leads to the faculty designing or developing their course that emphasizes, in such a way that it emphasizes skill development. So by explicitly naming these skills via badging, learners improve their ability to market their skill sets. And employers notice, that can benefit the workplace, but ultimately, the real reason to badge is the learner. Okay.
Right.
How to
So
badge, Beth?
yeah, so everybody wants to know, well, how do I do that? How do I badge? Well, the first thing we want to have people recognize are the digital badge standards, and Open Badges is the world's leading format for issuing digital badges. And one of the reasons we do that is so that there's a standard across all badging platforms. If you remember back in the day, I'm going to date myself here for a second, but if you remember back in the day when we had Microsoft Explorer and we had Firefox and we had a Safari in the beginning, they all had different standards. And so if you built a web page for Internet Explorer, you wouldn't necessarily get that same result if they opened it in other browsers. And so we would have to put these little notations on there that says viewed best in Microsoft Explorer. And so we had to classify that. But now we have standards that we abide by. And so what you develop looks the same practically on all the other browsers. So the same thing is true with Open Badges. So Open Badges provides a standard. So what does this do for the user? Well, this allows you to claim the badges that are issued to you, allows you to collect your badges and put them in a portfolio or a backpack so that you can accumulate them in a place that's a digital place. And then you can share those badges. So you can share them on social media, or you can share them on your badging platform. You can claim your badges and then not make them shareable. You can keep them private. So you have those options when you're using that. And then what we do is we have these platforms for which we issue the badges. And these platforms that I've noted on here are open badge standard platforms. So Canvas badges has become real popular. They are the badger.com. Instructor purchased badger.com and renamed it Canvas badges. And they integrate really nicely into Canvas, so they're really becoming popular. Credly is another one, Badge Cert, a Credible, Parchment. There's a bunch of other platforms, but these are the ones that are most common or most well-known. All right, so here's a really cool graphic of a badging system overview. So there's different ways that one can issue badges systematically. So in this, and some institutions do it a little bit differently, but they pretty much follow this scheme. So somebody decides to issue a badge. So an issuer or faculty member or a program will decide they want to issue a badge. So they would create the badge and create and assemble all the information that's necessary for that badge. So how do they earn the badge? What are the criteria they need to successfully get the badge, and what is it for? So they create the badge, and then the learner is either told about the badge or has an opportunity to collect the badge. And so they submit their evidence for what they did to earn that badge. Somebody evaluates that evidence and decides, yes, they did meet the criteria for earning that badge. And if they do, they issue the badge. And if they don't, they send it back and say, try again. And then the earner receives their badge, woohoo, and then they accept the badge and add it to their backpack. And then they can either share it or not. So some schools do it. For my research, some schools have the students request the badge. So while the badge is available, they have to request the badge and present their evidence. And some other institutions just automatically issue the badge once they have received that or reached that achievement. So there's different ways to do that. But the process is pretty much the same. Okay. It's next. So why do badges matter? So badges are, again, a visual representation of learning. So they give us a way to say, look, I did this, and here's proof that I did this. It identifies valuable skills that are acquired but not recognized by traditional measures. So, for example, in the transcript says you got an A in ENC 1101. What does that mean to employers? Nothing, right? So we can identify skill sets that were achieved in the English class, and then we can badge that, and that way we can identify them. It provides flexibility for gaining skills outside of the classroom. So for professional development, lifelong learning, we can badge those opportunities. It provides a secure digital proof that you've achieved some recognition. And employers and others are learning to represent these skill sets in a very granular way. So badging is a way to identify employable skills, lifelong learning skills, and give it a visual representation that gives value to both the earner and the observer. All right. Oh, I'm still going. So what do we badge? Well, we can badge all kinds of things, right? So keeping in mind that badging is not a micro-credential, right? We can badge participation. So we can say, listen, these people attended this workshop and they deserve a badge because they sat through my bumbling. We can add badges to a course to kind of create engagement. We can do some gamification in our courses, and we can badge achievement done within our online courses or courses that are delivered with online content. Or we can also badge micro-credentials, right? So we can say, yes, this person achieved this micro-credential, and here's the badge that proves that. The most important thing is that a badge must have value to someone, right? That there's no point in issuing it if it doesn't have value to someone. So it either has value to the earner, or it has value to the observer, or it has value to the issuer. So I may think this badge for participating in this workshop is valuable. Somebody else may think that it's not. On the other hand, the people who issued the badges think this is great because it's a marketing opportunity and a way to recognize those people who participated. So however you look at it, a badge needs to have value to someone, and that's all going to change.
Beth, thank you for making that important point. And you mentioned assessments needs to be part of badging to show skill development, that it's paired with micro-credentialing. That brings us to what kind of conversations do we have with faculty members to help them create micro-credentialing opportunities in their courses? And one of which is, of course, what assessments are you going to use that implies that skill development is happening? So micro skill development can only be validated by assessments. And how might you design an assessment in such a way that it's eliciting practical competence? I think that's the question to ask. And we know that assessments drive learning. They guide students towards achieving specific knowledge or skills, and they provide this opportunity for feedback. Think of all the different ways one can assess in a course. We often encourage multiple and varied assessments. Just go ahead and write in the chat different ways you can assess, like quizzes, projects, peer reviews. Let's just generate some ideas for a moment. And while you're doing that, I will proceed.
So we have portfolios. Anybody else? Videos.
True, presentations, absolutely. Infographics. Well, those are coming in. I'm just going to go ahead.
Yep.
So when deciding what to badge, again, think of skills or competencies. Those two sound very similar, but they're a little different. When you have developed competencies, that means you have the skills, knowledge, attitudes, and behaviors to perform the task proficiently. It usually combines learning with repeated application. When you have a skill, you have the expertise. So competencies encompasses skills. It's the larger concept. Now, durable skills are cross-functional and they're generalizable across different disciplines or activities. These aren't necessarily the exact topic of the course that one's taking, but the skills that you inadvertently pick up along the way. And an example of that might be, I picked up some project management skills from a project-based course about developing evaluation. So it's not a direct one-to-one link. And these are usually transferable and portable to different contexts. So let's go into a breakout room, a breakout activity. And I ask that you have some conversations about these durable skills that I'm speaking of. And just answer the two questions that I already put in the chat. What skills you gained from engaging in an activity outside of or tangential to the competency that you were actually learning? And how many badges can you think of that transcend the content of the course, that are transferable? And when you come back, when you return, just share a story from one of the members in your group. So we'll do that right now. Give me just a moment. All right. There you go. Feel free to join a room. Let's do about 10 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes. And I'll give them a warning, a 5-minute warning. So right now, it looks like everyone went into the breakout room except for me, you, and Joe.
Okay. I was wondering who the
Alright.
3 people were who were hanging out.
So how are we doing on time?
Yeah, how are we doing on
Good.
time? I
It's
feel like I'm talking too fast.
2:20 currently, so and we have
Okay.
until 2:45, so we still got.
Okay, good.
Mhm.
And I think we're about halfway done, so that's not too bad.
Yeah, that's right on time then.
Okay. And I can go very quickly through the rest of mine if we need me to. And it looks like there's about 2 people per room, so their conversations will occur a little bit more quickly. So that means no later than 2:30. Do we need to bring them back?
Yeah, we might want to bring them back a little sooner,
Okay.
only because I'm feeling like it's a lot of time.
2:25?
Yeah,
Okay. Well, I'm glad we had people.
right? We had a lot of competition, so you know,
Okay. How many other rooms were there? 4?
5.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So far, so good, Beth.
Yep. Yep. I'm having trouble talking today, though.
You're doing fine. Give them a couple more minutes. I'll broadcast that.
I think if it's okay, I'll start with the story about the colleague who started the dance club.
Oh yeah, that's great. Yeah, that sounds good. I remember reading that and I didn't remember what that was, but yes.
Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Yes, hi.
So Tom and I think it was Tom and I couldn't hear each other at all.
Oh no.
Oh no.
Work. I don't know why, but oh well.
Well, you can talk here if you'd like. And I'm going to give them the 1 minute, everyone else a 1 minute warning now.
Right back. Come into the office to avoid the noise, and we get noise anyway.
That happens.
They're moving us around at the college I'm at, and so I'm going to be working from home. And right now, my neighbor is trimming his lawn or something, so that's gonna
Yeah.
be
Yeah. So somebody's supposed to be cleaning my pool deck today, so I thought I don't even want to have to listen to that.
yeah. Where in Florida are you all located?
In Orlando.
Oh, okay. I lived in Lakeland for 6.5 years, a long time ago, about
Ah,
30 years ago now.
wow. Lakeland is nice.
Mhm.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close the rooms.
All right.
was just down in Lakeland recently to go to a spring training game. The Tigers have their spring training there, and it's the closest to us, so
Yeah, they put on a pretty good show.
they do. It's definitely one of my favorite minor league stadiums around.
Yeah.
Uh,
If you ever get up to Dayton, the Dragons up here put on a really good show.
Yeah, I'm from Cincinnati, so I'm a big Reds
Oh,
fan. So
okay.
I've been to Dayton several times. I do enjoy that the Daytona has the Reds minor league team down here too. So
Yeah, nice.
I lived in Volusia County when I first moved to Florida, so they gave teacher discounts there all the time.
Oh,
I
sweet.
still
Very
try to
nice.
get down as much as I can.
Very good.
Well, welcome back, everyone. Oh, they have 12 seconds, 11 seconds. Did
Uh-oh.
the countdown. Okay. Welcome back, everyone. Hope your conversation went well. And I wanted to put in the chat more about durable skills. I wanted to hear your stories. But first, I think Beth had a story to share about durable skills.
Yes, I was going to share a story from one of my colleagues. Was talking about when he was in college, he wanted to join a group of, an activity. He wasn't into sports, and so joining sports was not, that was not an option. But he was kind of athletically inclined. So what he wanted to do was to start a dance club. There wasn't a dance club at his university, so he had to petition the Student Government Association to start a dance club. And he had to talk his friend into joining with them because it turns out that you needed to have 3 people as officers in order to start a club. So he had to find a third person to join their club. And then he had to recruit members to join to do the club. And then they finally got it started, and they had dance lessons and they had dance competitions, and he had a ton of fun. And so in context of what we're talking about, the course, if you will, or the dance club taught the members how to dance and taught them how to dance in competition. But he said what he gained out of that whole experience were these durable skills that he could apply to other activities in his life and other jobs. For example, he learned to do public speaking. He learned to petition and write an argument for a defense for why they needed a dance club and how to justify that. He learned budgeting because he had to manage a budget for the club, and he had to figure out how to manage the finances for the club to stay solvent. And he had to learn marketing skills, how to publicize the dance club and recruit other dancers to join the club. So there were these other skills that he acquired while he was trying to start this dance club. And so while the content of the dance club was to teach dancing, there are all these other auxiliary skills that he learned in the process of putting one of those together. And that's what we're kind of talking about, or what are these other skills that you gained that wasn't a part of the context of what you were doing.
That's awesome. What other stories did you hear when you were in your groups that you'd like to share? Feel free to unmute and share person you were paired with story.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Well, in our breakout room, for some reason, we couldn't hear each other. So that we had a lot of sign language going on, which was good. We could probably put a badge on that one. We would get a bonus for that one. But
Nice.
some ideas. Like in a chemistry course, you might have a badge for laboratory safety. In a history course, you might end up having a badge for if the person did primary source research, you could make a badge for that. So like there's like subcategories in each of and lots of courses that you might not even think of where a badge could come into play. And of course those are kind of oddball ones, but they there's others like you were talking about that would even make more sense.
Thank you, Todd.
And to go along with Todd, how to badging for doing proper citations in certain formats, right? That would be a nice micro credential for research.
I can
Any
share.
others?
Oh,
Mhm.
Julie
Ariel.
and I were, hi. Julie and I were in a room together and we were just, kind of reflecting on the different badges or micro credentials that we had done. And one that we had in common was the QM, a QM badge. And, what we talked about was that beyond just being able to do a QM review to meet certain standards or either institutionally or to send back to QM, that it was a really great lesson in course design that we could share with others or share the rubric with others. So, as folks who work in online education, obviously that's very transferable to us because it was so relevant to our experiences. But, it was meant for a very specific task, but then it was transferable. Julie, was that a good summary of what we talked about?
Yeah, absolutely. Did it awesome, Ariel. I have nothing further to add.
Great.
Thank you. Any other shares?
Hi.
Hi.
So in our group, we had two things. I talked about my undergrad and I got my BFA, and a lot of us did actual hands-on things like going to the gallery and museums and actually putting artwork and stuff up. So it would have been cool if that was a micro credential, because then we learned and we actually did it. So we learned a lot of skill sets with that. So that would have been cool. And then Jan brought a really good point of making micro credential for student workers. And I'm also a student worker, and that's how I got into instructional design, because I was really interested with the education side and actually building courses. And you learn a lot, even I helped a lot with graphic design too. So I helped a lot with them designing banners and HIPs and all that stuff and like coding. So it'd be cool to have a micro credentials for student workers too, so they can show that, hey, I got this certificate and I learned this skill set, so we can show it to our employers. So
I
yeah.
love that idea of badging the skill set that student workers are developing.
I
you.
agree. I agree, Amanda. I think that's something we should pick up and run with. I just absolutely love the idea of issuing micro credentials to our student workers. That's awesome. Thanks for sharing that.
All right. Moving forward. So in your conversation, you may have pinpointed these particular durable skills. These are pretty ubiquitous. And if there were others that are missing from this list, which I'm sure there are, and I heard a few, feel free to put them in the chat. All right. So while you're doing that, I'll move forward. So when you're having conversations with faculty interested in micro-credentialing, you'll want to have that conversation about assessments and durable skills. Think about Bloom's taxonomy. And then when you think about Bloom's taxonomy, what level on the taxonomy is most associated with skill development? Yeah, I agree with you, even though you didn't say it aloud. It's usually higher order thinking skills right at the top there. So that's also something to have the conversation with faculty members about. And think about not only the durable skills, but the content specific skills that coincide maybe the title of the course and the major objectives for the course. When I say explicitly, so like the 3D printing course, of course, is going to yield 3D printing skills. Now, I love the CAS taxonomies for drilling down into very specific skill sets. It's a great resource for determining what skills to add a badge to or micro credential. And then ONET is excellent as well. A CAS kind of drills down into skills and occupations. You can get very granular with that. ONET offers a description of specific jobs or opportunities out there. It's great for job seekers, HR professionals, students, researchers, and of course, micro-credentialing.
I'd also like to point out, Amanda, before we move on, is that these identifiers that you have with Lightcast taxonomies and ONET, these are also excellent metadata that you could add to your badges. So they're great resources for finding those keywords that you can attach to your metadata. All right.
Very good point. Over to you now.
Right. So what we're looking at here is evidence, right? Before we issue a microcredential, we have to have evidence that they acquired the skill or they demonstrated the skill that you wanted to badge or you wanted to give them the microcredential for. And so what we want to know is, what's the evidence that you're thinking about. So if you're having a conversation with your faculty member and they want to issue a badge or they want to issue a micro-credential, or if you're talking to a program coordinator, you want to ask them, what evidence are you going to collect that says these people who you are issuing the micro-credential to have acquired that skill? How are they going to demonstrate that skill? And how are you going to process that? Besides describing those skill sets and quantifying that, you've got to figure out what the process is that you're going to be for collecting that. And then, and how long are you going to keep it for? How long are you going to keep that evidence for? Because you can also put time limits on your micro-credentials and time limits on your badges and say, okay, they acquired the skill, but this credential times out, if you will, at 5 years, so that it implies that you need to continue, or there might be some advances in that technology where you need to continue your lifelong learning. So we were kind of asking what kinds of things were you thinking that would be evidence of skill acquisition? And you could put that in the chat if you think of something. We did that earlier too with some of the assessments. The important thing with the evidence is it's not just assessments. So when you say assessments, I think, tests, right? But it can be more than tests. So do we want to go ahead to the next slide and show them what we gathered? There we go. So we have gathered a chart of our brainstorming. Amanda and I brainstormed some different ways which we could collect evidence. So for pedagogy, we could look at case studies. We could have that be project-based evidence. We could have authentic testing. We could do service learning. All of those were different ways that they could demonstrate their skills. We've got portfolios. Somebody mentioned videos earlier, writings. One institution I know of has the students or the earner do a presentation. They have to do an oral presentation of what they learned, what they were able to accomplish, charts, graphs, presentations. Obviously quizzes, but it needs to be substantial, right? It can't just be here, you learn this chapter. It needs to be substantial and it needs to be a demonstratable skill. On how you describe the skills in the metadata, again, looking at your SMART descriptions. Everybody remembers SMART, the acronym SMART, which of course eludes me at the moment. And then the evidence can be, the badging can be either linear or nonlinear, right? So we can scaffold that and have them go through a sequence to earn the badge or earn micro-credentials to ultimately earn what I would call an Uber badge, or it could be nonlinear where they pick them from different places and through a combination of them earn a micro-credential. Any thoughts? Oh, look at somebody posted that. Thank you, Amanda. Specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound. So good. All right, so now we want to talk about designing badges. Now, this is a very important aspect to issuing badges as well. I wanted to include it because I think sometimes we don't give it enough thought about how we are going to design our badges. It's really, no, there we go. It's really important that you think about your badge. How is it going to be displayed? What's it going to look like when they share it? Most platforms want you to limit your badge sizes to 400 by 400 pixels. Generally, the file type is either going to be a PNG or SVG. You want to make sure your text is concise and short. You want to watch your color coordination and your symbolism. Don't want to offend anybody. Watch your font. All of these things are really important. On the screen, you'll see that there's a badge that Amanda earned. It's the PMI Agile certification. And the point to demonstrate was that little badge is what you see, the previous slide, that little badge is what you see in her LinkedIn profile. And so when you click on the show the credential, then you see the big badge. So the idea is to look at what you're creating and what's it going to look like in the different places where it could be shared. So you see the little graphic, the little PHMI is small, but it's recognizable when it's expanded. So think about those kinds of things when you're talking to your folks about designing a badge. All right, so here we have pathways. If you want to have pathways, it's the number one thing about pathways is you got to think about it and design it before you build it. You gotta have your framework in place before you build it, because once you build it, it's really hard to undo it. So a pathway, let's go to the next slide. The pathway is all about how to get to the folks, how they get to the end, right? What are the different pathways for earning a micro-credential? So the benefits to a pathway is motivating learners to pick up those little micro-credentials or little skill sets along the way. It increases engagement. Pathways create flexibility and stackable opportunities for earning micro-credentials and badges. It's real important that you again, think about this ahead of time, make sure it's organized. What sequence can they earn them in? What sequence do you want them to earn them in? And then for learners, the pathway is just like a really clear roadmap. What do I got to do to get to the end? What kinds of things can I acquire? What kinds of skill sets can I pick up along the way? And how long is this going to take me? And what's involved in order for me to get to that ultimate career certificate or degree, right? So pathways are really great, but again, require a lot of thought and a lot of planning and before you build it into your platform. All right, that's clear as mud, right?
I think it is, until you start building it, and then it's a whole different story.
Right, right.
So you may be asking, how do I gain momentum with badging at my, you name it, unit, program, university? Start by raising awareness about it. It uses various communication channels, and anything you can think of to do that is probably right. So I'm going to move forward. Target engagement through meetings, focus groups, interviews, surveys, the usual data collection mechanisms. It's a great way to get feedback and buy-in and engage people across, you name it, your institution. And there's so many different units on campus that can be interested: continuing ed, career services, the registrar, and so on and so forth. Identify, and feature champions of micro-credentialing, because we definitely want to highlight their accomplishments and showcase their enthusiasm to inspire others to take up the micro-credentialing helm as well. Provide comprehensive training across the institution to cover pretty much all that we covered today and more. Foster collaborations, even beyond the university. May decide to align with community and civic organizations, workplaces, what they want to see, the skills that they want to see developed in their employees, and build relationships with all those stakeholders through meaningful conversations and networking. Yep, so fostering enthusiasm about micro-credentialing will be the key to your successful initiative. With that, and if Beth doesn't have any closing words,
No, I think raising awareness is the best way to move badges forward and give those badges and micro-credentials value. Why don't you move on to the next slide, because I think we're running out of time and we want people to get their badge because
that's right.
they earn it. So we created a badge for you for attending this presentation. We are so happy that you joined us. If you click on the QR code or go to the URL that's listed on that page, you can get that awesome micro-credential badging session participation badge. Again, I think it has a lot of value. I'm sure the observers who see that you earn this badge will also recognize the value of you participating and learning more about micro-credentials than you ever wanted to know. All right.
Well, thank you all. If you did not scan the QR code, the link is in the chat, and here are our references. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm going to go ahead and stop my share, take any burning questions, and turn it over to Joe if there are none.
Thank you all for attending. We will have about a 15-minute break until right at the top of the hour, where we'll have our student panel, and then the closing after that. So I will stay here and hang out if anybody has any other questions. But if you don't have any, you are free to. We have like I said, about a 15-minute break until 3 o'clock.
Do they get a special code for attending the session?
Yes, I put the code in the session. It is quality_access.
Okay. All right. That's an interesting code.